Welcome to this special edition of Hannity Democratic Scandals. I'm Janine Pirro, in for Sean tonight. Liberals are reeling from a wave of political calamities that could have serious legal consequences.
Lawmakers encourage defiance of the nation's laws. The state is the least livable
to investigate the FBI's handling of the Clinton email probe. Congressman Devin Nunes continues to expose severe FISA abuses, and former Obama officials are facing new scrutiny. But first tonight, we start with a major battle raging between the Trump administration and the liberal state of California. The Department of Justice now looking into a possible obstruction of justice charge against the mayor of Oakland.
I hope you will come back.
This comes after the mayor alerted illegal
as you just heard,
immigrants
and he's right,
in the California Bay Area that federal immigration authorities were preparing to conduct raids. The acting ICE director is slamming that mayor of Oakland. Take a look.
What she did is no better than a gang lookout yelling police when a police cruiser comes in the neighborhood, except she did it to the entire community. I mean, it's beyond the pale. I've been doing this for 34 years, and this is a whole new role to intentionally warn criminals that law enforcement is coming. Being a law enforcement officer is already dangerous enough, but to give the criminals a heads up that we're coming in the next 24 hours increases that risk, puts them, you're talking about, these are American heroes that strap a gun to the hip every day to defend this nation. And to tell the criminals we're coming in the next 24 hours, it's just incredible.
The head of ICE is also saying that because of the mayor's warning, about 800 criminal illegal immigrants escaped arrest.
Who glows?
Immigration authorities were, however, still able to detain 232 suspected illegal immigrants in a 4-day raid. Now, according to ICE, 115 of the people arrested had, quote, prior felony convictions for serious or violent offenses. Now, despite these facts, the mayor of Oakland is actually defending her decision to protect and shield illegal immigrants. Here's what the mayor wrote on Twitter. I do not regret sharing this information. It is Oakland's legal right to be a sanctuary city, and we have not broken any laws. We believe our community is safer when families stay together. President Trump also appears to be fed up with California's sanctuary policies. He recently threatened to pull ICE and Border Patrol agents from the state because California is refusing to cooperate with the federal government on immigration enforcement. Take a look.
We're getting no help from the state of California. I mean, frankly, if I wanted to pull our people from California, you would have a crime nest like you've never seen in California. All I'd have to do is say, ICE and Border Patrol, let California alone. You'd be inundated. You would see crime like nobody's ever seen crime in this country. And yet we get no help from the state of California.
Here now with reaction from the Center for Immigration Studies, Jessica Vaughn, immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez, and former deputy assistant to the president and Fox News national security strategist Sebastian Gorka. All right, good evening, all. I'm going to start with you, Jessica. Thank you, is it a protection of citizens to prevent ICE agents from doing their job for which they have legal authority?
Well, no, citizens want our immigration laws enforced. And ICE's targets, as you mentioned, are felons, criminals, gang members, people who've been deported before, people who've been immigration violators multiple times. And they were going after the criminals. ICE would much rather arrest them in the jails, but cities like Oakland prevent ICE from doing that. They tell the law enforcement agencies they can't cooperate, and that's why these criminals are on the street to begin with, because ICE would have arrested them earlier if they could, and now they've got to go out into the community to do so. And so it is more dangerous.
So it's more dangerous for everyone. All right, you know, Francisco Hernandez, now you're an immigration attorney. When the Oakland's mayor says, we believe our community is safer when families stay together, does Kate Steinle and her ability, now that she's 6 feet under, to stay with her family, does that enter into the mayor's mind at all?
Well, it can't. There's no such thing as a sanctuary city as a political phantom, Your Honor. You know that.
No, I don't.
City, state, or county, no city, state, or county can oppose the federal government. Now, you're telling me that ICE can catch 800 people at the same time, but they're snitched out by a mayor? I mean, what kind of secret was it? And why haven't they picked them up before? They've been deported before, and they were in the jail. Why didn't they hold them then? Guys, this is, you know what? We were on the cusp of immigration reform. We thought everybody was on the same page, but the shooting in Florida, okay, now you got the president crawfishing on his own party and the NRA.
I don't want to go into Florida right now. Dr. Gorka, let me ask you this, okay? Now they're saying that because the mayor said something, you know, that really doesn't make a difference. What do you think?
Well, just read the mayor's tweet. I hope this woman didn't have any legal training. She said it's the city's rights. Cities don't have rights. U.S. citizens have rights to be protected, and the city has responsibilities to protect them. The mayor of any city has no power when it comes to immigration. That's a usurpation of federal authority. Yes. She said families have to be protected. Well, guess what? Al Capone had a family. So did Pablo Escobar. Not all families are good.
Well, but here's the problem. And Jessica, I'm going to go to you on this now. If law enforcement, federal law enforcement agents are forced to go into a city without having the assistance of locals, or at least the identification of where these illegal felons, and remember, Francisco, wait a minute. The truth is, if they are being hidden or not at the addresses, and I've done enough warrants and I've had a whole team of cops who worked for me, then what you're saying is that, you know, we're going to give them a heads up so that they can never be arrested. Now the feds have to come in and get involved in the middle of a society where people are trying to live safely, where it could have been accommodated very easily by the locals and the feds working together to arrest a convicted felon. Jessica?
Is there a question there, Your Honor?
That's right. In
yeah,
90%
there is, and I'm going to get to you in a minute, so hang on. Go ahead.
In 90% of the country, ICE does its work of deporting criminals by arresting them in the jails. But they don't get that kind of cooperation in California, and particularly in Oakland. That's why these criminal aliens were on the street to begin with.
Seriously.
ICE does depend on cooperation from state and local law enforcement for an operation like this, a fugitive operation, because they don't want to get shot at by a police officer that doesn't know they're in the neighborhood doing this kind of operation. And perhaps that's where the mayor got tipped off. Who knows? Well, but she's also basically telling people to resist arrest, which is absurd also. All right. But this has consequences. There are people who may be harmed because the criminal aliens who took the mayor's warning went, you know, disappeared for a while.
All right, let me go to Francisco. Francisco, do you know, I'm asking the questions. Wait a minute, Francisco. Are you familiar with the definition of obstruction of justice?
I am.
Okay,
and that's an existing definition.
Okay, the definition of obstruction of justice, 18 U.S.C. 1505, is when someone obstructs or impedes the administration of law under which any pending proceeding is being had before any agency of the United States. To me, obstruction of justice is what this mayor should be charged with.
If ICE knows that this mayor runs what supposedly is a sanctuary city, and the secret gets out to her, what kind of a secret do we have at ICE and Department of Homeland Security? Guys, Department of Homeland Security does not need the cooperation of a mayor of a county or a state. The states get the information from the federal government.
No, I don't care if she assists them. I care if she obstructs them. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Again, your guest isn't answering the point here. The mayor is treating illegal immigrants as a protected class. They are not a protected class. They are illegal immigrants, and more than 150 of them have committed serious violent offenses. Since when does a mayor protect people who've committed serious felonies?
All right,
if they have been convicted, why haven't they picked them up yet?
Because mayors like this mayor is hiding them and alerting them. Come on, Francisco, you know better than that.
Why did they get them at the jail?
And not only that,
no, the locals. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Jessica. Wait a minute, Jessica. because the locals are letting them out the side door when they know ICE is coming. The locals are letting them out early so the feds cannot protect American citizens. They are protecting criminal illegals. I know what I know. Don't tell me what I know.
That's not true.
Go ahead. It is true. Don't you come on this show and tell me what's true and what isn't true. Go ahead, Jessica.
Well, it's not true.
Well,
it's inaccurate.
Sanctuaries like Oakland, San Francisco, and the entire state of California does not cooperate with ICE. They release criminal aliens that ICE has identified through biometrics who are deportable from the country, but they refuse to allow ICE to come and pick up these individuals. That's why they're on the street to begin with.
Absolutely.
And then when ICE goes to get them, the mayor...
Why is that a lie?
It was federal policy.
You are telling me that a city can disable the federal government. A city jail can disable the federal government and keep them from picking somebody up. We do it every day, Your Honor. You know, on drug dealers, on drug traffickers.
Yeah, if they're at their address.
Yes, they do it every day.
I used to send my guys out all the time to make arrests. We break through the doors at 5 in the morning, but if they're not there because they got a tip, then I can't arrest them. Sebastian,
go ahead. Let's go, Your Honor, for president.
Let's go. 8 years under Obama. It was federal policy from the top down, catch and release, even at the border, and then encouraging the creation of sanctuary cities. That's what we've had for 8 years. It stopped on January the 20th. But these people are aiding and abetting criminals.
All right, well, let's see if justice...
Did you forget that President Obama deported 2.5 million
That is fallacious. That was a redefinition.
Wait a minute. When did Kate Steinle happen? During the Obama administration. Jessica, last question to you. When the governor, Jerry Brown, says, we protect all of our people from criminals, and we defend everyone who comes here for a better life.
He did not say that.
Yeah, he did say that. Jerry Brown.
He did not.
Yeah. Obviously, the citizens of California need some sanctuary from their legislature and their governor and from mayors like this, because they're creating a public safety hazard by releasing criminal aliens every single day who go out and prey again on everyone in the community.
We need sanctuary,
and it's got to be stopped.
So the state of California has trumped the federal government.
Yeah, that's right. They have. And they're going to be accountable for it. Now, what do you say if the president does what he threatened to do, and that is take all the ICE agents out, then you guys can deal with them until you beg for the ICE agents to come back.
Yeah. Well, that's genius. That's pure genius. But have y'all not figured out that President Trump is a New York liberal? He's saying things from New York. He's never even lived in California.
That's why we have an 80% drop in illegal migration across the southern border since he was inaugurated. Right.
Okay,
Seriously,
and by the way,
this has nothing to do with you know, immigration is an issue that crosses traditional party lines. This is, this is a matter of California politicians not being happy with American citizens and wanting to create a new electorate for themselves. That's what this boils down to.
Yeah, it's all about demographics. There's no question. All right. In response, California Governor Jerry Brown told CNBC, in California, we protect all our people from criminals. And in his State of the State, the Democratic governor issued a strong rebuke. So there you have it for saying he never said it. Now, I'm going to end. I'm going to give you. Come on. I'm going to give you the opportunity, 30 seconds. Tell me why what the ICE agents are doing should be blocked by local politicians in California.
ICE does not need the assistance of cities, states, or counties. ICE can do a job. Let the troops do what they do. The troops know what they do. The problem is with politics, and you got everybody crawfishing. We were on the cusp of immigration reform or deciding who gets to stay and who gets to go, but now nobody wants to touch it because we've got the gun issue. Everybody's crawfishing, both sides, Democrats and Republicans.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me all of a sudden the liberals could care less about the Dreamers because they're more worried about guns? Look, President Trump said, I'll give 1.8 million of them a path to citizen, triple what Obama did. Now you want to say that the Trump didn't do his job? You answer it.
I'm in.
It's a joke.
Mr. Hannity,
your guest was absolutely correct. Why would you do this as a mayor? There's one reason. They want to change the demographics and they want to have new voters made out of these illegal aliens. That's the end of the message. We want to create a new voting bloc. It's nothing to do with safety. It's politics. And it is a shame. Oh,
in California?
Really?
They can't vote till they become citizens.
Watch my show tomorrow night and you'll hear how they're all voting. Anyway, I want to thank you all. Coming up, Congressman Matt Gaetz on why a second special counsel is needed to investigate the Clinton email probe and potential FISA abuses. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Now, according to multiple news outlets tonight, a highly anticipated report from the Department of Justice Inspector General is expected to criticize former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe for authorizing improper media leaks about an investigation into the Clinton Foundation back in October of 2016. This same IG report is also expected to get into the Clinton email investigation. This news comes on the same week that more than a dozen Republican lawmakers in the House sent a letter to Attorney General Jeff Sessions urging him to appoint a second special counsel to investigate both the FBI and the Department of Justice's handling of the Clinton and Trump-Russia probes. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is one of the lawmakers calling for a special counsel, a second special counsel. He joins us now. All right, good evening, Congressman.
Good evening, Judge.
All right. Now, you are renewing, as are many Republican congressmen, the request for a second special counsel. Now, I imagine that most viewers are saying they did it before. Why should it happen now? And what's new that they're asking for it again?
Well, Judge, the last time we spoke about the ability for Democrats to convert political cash into a government-sponsored warrant to spy on members of the Trump transition team, you said you wanted to see people led away in handcuffs, not just fired, but led away in handcuffs. Well, you know what? The FBI and the Department of Justice aren't going to be putting the handcuffs on themselves, so we need a second special counsel, just as Congressman Lee Zeldin has recommended, so that we can take the findings of the IG report, we could take the information we've learned in congressional hearings, and we can actually have prosecutions. Because my fear is that if we don't have a second special counsel, this will turn out a lot like the Benghazi investigation, where we learn a lot of bad facts, but no one's really held accountable.
You know what bothers me, Congressman, is that given the FBI and the Department of Justice's dilatory approach, you know, to everything from the handing over of emails, from the redactions, from the outright refusal by even the FBI director saying, well, we'll work out what we're going to give Congress, which has oversight over justice and the FBI, you know, it seems to me that it is impossible. They basically said everything but we dare you because we're not going to do anything anyway. What do we do about this?
Well, Congress doesn't have the power to throw people in jail, but we have the responsibility to find the evidence and show it to the American people. And to your point, Judge Janine, if we had not had congressional oversight and hearings and subpoenas, we wouldn't even know about the text messages between Pete Strzok and Lisa Page that demonstrate a substantial anti-Trump, pro-Hillary bias. You mentioned Andrew McCabe earlier. His testimony before the Judiciary Committee in closed session showed me that Hillary Clinton was never really put in jeopardy as a result of her use of a private email server and the leaking of classified information, because she had people that were running interference for her at the DOJ.
What do you say to people who say, I am so sick and tired of this Clinton email investigation thing, let it go? What do you say to them?
Well, we cannot live in a country where losing an election functions as a de facto immunity deal. If people broke the law, they have to be held accountable, because if we just allow that to happen, then we invite that type of crime in the future. That's why the rule of law matters. And now the Clintons, they've got decades of ignoring the rule of law and never being held accountable, and we've got a chance to change it, and we should take that opportunity.
So what are the chances of getting a special counsel, a second special counsel?
Well, that is up to Jeff Sessions, and frankly, I'm very disappointed.
He's the guy who took himself off within 24 or 48 hours of being appointed the Attorney General. He tells the president, I'm recusing myself. I mean, this is beyond the pale. Jeff Sessions is not going to do it. Jeff Sessions says, I'm getting an inspector general. Oh, we can spend another year and a half on an inspector general coming up with a conclusion. The inspector general doesn't have the right to go to a grand jury, subpoena anybody. So what is this guy doing?
Well, if Jeff Sessions does not appoint a second special counsel, then we need a new attorney general, Judge, because you're absolutely right. Even if we learn more horrifying things from the inspector general, we can't actually prosecute somebody for those things because we would need somebody to be able to bring that case. And the Department of Justice and FBI obviously won't be bringing a case against themselves. So Jeff Sessions needs to get rid of this mindset that is a dereliction of duty, and he needs to do what Congress has called for and appoint a second special counsel to get to the bottom of this.
But Jeff Sessions, you know, said he was considering that and considering investigating certain cases. I don't know whether it was the email thing or the foundation, whatever it was. He gave us all hope a few months back. Nothing's happened from that either. The president, it doesn't appear that he's going to get rid of Sessions, all right, because, you know, everybody, I'm sure, will have a conniption, and all his senator friends will say it's a Saturday night massacre. So, I mean, does America just kind of keep moving as though it doesn't matter who violates the law?
I never underestimate the power of the American people. Remember when there were some people in the intelligence community who didn't even want to release the Nunes memo, but because tens of thousands of Americans contacted their members of Congress and demanded transparency, we got it. And that's why the American people need to back up what Lee Zeldin and many other members of Congress are fighting for, to get a second special counsel so that people are held accountable and thrown in jail for the crimes committed against the Trump administration during the transition.
All right. And finally, you know, you guys now are really pushing hard on this. Do you have meetings with the Attorney General? I mean, have you sat down with him and said, you know, maybe, you know, over a glass of milk, a glass of bourbon, I mean, whatever, and said, come on, what is the problem here?
I did sit down with the Attorney General along with Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte and many others, and I was disappointed that the Attorney General didn't seem to be very engaged on any of these issues regarding existential threats to the Trump administration. He was deferring to a team that answered to Rod Rosenstein, for goodness sakes, and it was Rosenstein's very signatures that reauthorized these wiretaps based on false information that the Department of Justice and FBI knew was false information. And so I think we need a more engaged Attorney General.
Well, was the Attorney General in the company of Rod Rosenstein at that point, or Rosenstein's chief of staff, as I understand he usually is?
It was the members of the Rosenstein team that were present, and when members of Congress asked Jeff Sessions to be more assertive and take action on a second special counsel, he deferred to staff members. I fear, Judge, that Jeff Sessions has become an employee at the Department of Justice, and he's not fulfilling his duties as Attorney General.
Wow. Thank you very much, Congressman. All right, joining us now with reaction, our Independent Women's Voice president and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce and Fox News contributor Lisa Booth. All right, you know, it's very interesting, Lisa, and I'll start with you. And that is, my understanding of what goes on in Washington is that the Attorney General doesn't meet with anyone, assuming he's going to meet anyone at all, without Rosenstein or Rosenstein's staff. And now I got it straight from the horse's mouth that when asked a serious question, the Attorney General defers to Rosenstein and his staff for answers.
Well, and I'm sure part of that is because he recused himself from the Russia investigation, so perhaps he doesn't want the appearance of impropriety. But the problem here...
then why was... Okay.
Well, but the problem here is we need to get to the bottom of a ton of questions about the DOJ and the FBI's handling of both the Hillary Clinton investigation and the Russia investigation. I don't think we can trust either the FBI or the DOJ to conduct that investigation themselves. Now, I am curious about seeing what is going to come out in this Inspector General report by Michael Horitz. He was the one that unearthed the text message exchange between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and he does have a solid history of going after government agencies, like we saw with Fast and Furious and the ATF, which led to shakeup in leadership there, also going after the DEA and the Columbia prostitution scandal that they were involved with as well. So, and I think depending on what he comes up with, that could be the impetus for maybe another special counsel investigation or further action there. So I'm very curious to see what he comes out with.
Yeah, well, I'm not holding my breath. Tammy?
Well, look, I think that in some ways, I think, like many Americans, we see scandal after scandal. Finally, the curtain is being drawn back. And it wouldn't surprise me if even someone like Jeff Sessions is shocked by the nature of what we're seeing unfold. This is at the very top of the FBI. Wherever you look at and at whomever you look, it's not only a level of corruption and collusion, if you will, but blatant and sloppy and open. And we have to ask, one, this wasn't new. How long has this been going on? But then you have to ask, how far through the government does it go? And I think that we've got to make sure, and we must push, because the inclination is going to be, this is either too big or I don't believe it because it's too shocking. But the fact is, this is our chance to clean up this government.
Tammy, this guy was a prosecutor, a United States attorney. You are looking and reading the same things that we're all reading. But you want to tell me the guy's in shock? Ergo, he's not doing anything?
His body was the Senate, and he moved through for an innumerable length of time. And we can't dismiss the impact of living in that bubble.
So we lost his prosecutorial balls?
I'm a big fan of Jeff Sessions, but I think we're seeing that, in fact, maybe he thought this would be a bit more bureaucratic than it really has ended up being. Thank goodness for the president that he's got an eye on this. He's publicly making sure individuals know how serious this is. But even with them trying to keep the tamp down, like with the McCabe situation, if you look to the left, you look to the right, you wake up in the morning, there's some new scandal in front of you because it's finally all coming out, and they can't keep it in the bottom.
All right, Lisa. I mean, how do you take that? I mean, you know, that it's so shocking that the Attorney General can't deal with it. And I'm going to even add something to that. James Rabicki, who was Comey's chief of staff, says we found a lot of new emails. We did find new stuff, but nothing that's going to change our view of the original conclusion in July. That's the upshot. I mean, I read that and I say, take him out in cuffs.
Well, you know, I think that agencies don't want scrutiny, right? So there could be an element of that, if even Jeff Sessions not wanting the DOJ as a department to face scrutiny. But the problem is, I think Americans have lost so much trust in institutions, and rightfully so. When you see some of these text messages that have come out from FBI agents like Peter Strzok, that was one of the lead investigators with Hillary Clinton, also involved with the Russia investigation as well. And so I think that to get more trust, to get Americans to once again trust American institutions, that we need to find some answers here about what went on, and from a trusted source as well.
I just have to say that we can't dismiss the fact that, because this is all so new, the fact that we are getting information that normally the American people would never have seen. And it's about also managing that. Jeff Sessions clearly is not managing it well. But for the American people and what's moving forward here, we have the courage to be able to look at it and to deal with it, and the president is going to have to act. Clearly, Jeff Sessions, I mean, look, he wants to be the Attorney General. It's a great job, but maybe this is different than what he expected it to be. Ultimately, every American, regardless of what your party is, you've got to care about this, because this is about the collapse, if you will, of our law enforcement agencies being used more as a bureaucratic political cudgel than really doing their job in general.
You know, Lisa, one of the things that you said was that, you know, that he doesn't want the integrity of the Department of Justice, that being Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, to be attacked. But that's his job. Plus, he was never there at the time that it was so corrupt. So if he really believes in truth, justice, and the American way, could go and clean it up and be the hero. But he's not.
Well, no, I do. I absolutely think Americans need answer here, because even Andrew McCabe,
so how are we going to get the answers?
Well, that is why maybe I'm just hopeful, Judge.
Of what?
I want just some sort of element of truth and answers here, and I'm hoping that with the Inspector General report, perhaps it blows the doors open on some of these questions that Americans have. Because even look at someone like Andrew McCabe, he was not forthright to Congress about the fact that he knew who financed the dossier.
You know what's amazing?
He was not honest with Congress.
Andrew McCabe wasn't forthcoming. Christopher Wray knew what was going on, and until he took a walk to the White House, he wasn't going to fire McCabe.
Right now, Sessions sets up probes and inspector generals. He can set up a special prosecutor. In March of last year, he said he was open to of the idea. He never did it. The fact is that we got to support everybody who's asking for the special prosecutor, all of the members of the House of Representatives who are, because that is the only way that we can actually have a prosecutorial
Do we have a hotline?
approach.
Do we have an email? Do we have a hashtag? How do viewers say, I want this to happen? I'm sick of hearing about this garbage.
Call your member of Congress to
the
put
phone
pressure.
still works. The phone still works. Email, phone call, your own forums, Twitter, social media. They watch, they know, they feel it.
They do, and they feel the pressure.
Or just listen to the judge.
Yeah. Tune in.
She'll tell
All
you.
right, thanks. All right, anyway, coming up next, Sarah Carter and Greg Jarrett will join us with new information on that phony Russian dossier. Don't go away. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Now, in a letter released yesterday, House Intel Committee Chair Devin Nunes accused the FBI of violating not only its own protocol, but possibly even the criminal statutes by using the Steele dossier to help obtain a FISA warrant to surveil Trump campaign associate Carter Page. Joining me now with more is Fox News contributor Sarah Carter and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. All right, good evening. I must tell you, Greg, and I'm going to start with you. The thing that I don't understand is why I haven't heard anything about a FISA judge, calling the FBI, calling the Department of Justice into his or her chambers to say, how dare you put this political garbage in front of me? How dare you basically obstruct real justice and commit a fraud and contempt of the court by alleging that this is a sufficient basis for surveillance?
Maybe they did it. It is, after all, a secret court. But I suspect we'd know about it by now if they had. And if they didn't do it, they should have done it, and they're breaching their duty by failing to do it. Those judges should be demanding that the high officials at DOJ and the FBI appear before them and say, you concealed evidence. You deceived me. You didn't tell me that this was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. You didn't tell me that you knew that Christopher Steele was a liar. If you had told me those things, I would never have granted a warrant to surveil on an American citizen.
So when people say, that this is the kind of thing where the FISA court warrants are so difficult, they're 40, 50 pages, and yet we hear nothing about a sanction or lawyers being brought up on contempt like Jim Comey.
Right.
What in the last 90 days, in addition to this dossier, what reasonable cause have you developed that will allow me to continue on this, issuing this surveillance warrant?
Exactly. They have to have probable cause. They didn't have it. And the bulk of their FISA application was based on a phony document, which was unverified, which is against the law. Look, as I see it, and I've studied the different felony statutes, they violated 6 of them. Abuse of power, perjury, misleading statements, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction. Those are the 6 things.
Contempt of court.
Devin Nunes has pointed out contempt of court. That's sort of a given. They should have been held in contempt of court immediately.
All right. Sarah Carter, what are you hearing? I mean, you're giving us all these little, tidbits and facts, I should say, not little tidbits, that lead us to the next discussion. What have you learned in the last 24 hours?
Well, 2 things. I want to go back to the courts really quick. Remember that the presiding judge over the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, this is the secret court, Rosemary Collyer, did send a letter to Devin Nunes and others saying, look, we don't object formally or informally. We've told you both times to releasing the applications on Carter Page. I think this is their response saying, look, we'll release those documents if the executive branch allows us, and we'll get those documents out to the public. I think this is their way of objecting to what the FBI did. So we don't know what happened behind closed doors, but before the public, I think this letter was highly significant.
Very significant. Sarah, hang on. I want to jump to Greg on this. So if the presiding judge of the FISA court says we have no objection to the release of that information, she's still hedging it, saying somebody else, the president, has
somebody else has to do it. Well, the executive branch would have to do it, and that would mean essentially Jeff Sessions, who's not really the Attorney General. He just pretends to be one. It's Rod Rosenstein. He would never do it because he is trying to conceal all of the illegal acts committed by the FBI and the Department of Justice. I agree. The president should instruct the Attorney General to disclose this information. It is an utter myth and a canard that there's some firewall between DOJ.
Hold on. Greg, hold on a second. If the president is agreeable, why doesn't he just get it from the judge who's agreeable? Keep Sessions out of it.
Separation of powers. It would be a legal quagmire that would be litigated for more than a year. The efficient way to do it is to get it from the source, Department of Justice and FBI.
But I think it is amazing that the presiding justice would say, I'm ready to release this information to the FISA court. All right, Sarah, the second point you were making.
The second point is this. The Department of Justice is arguing, and I've spoken to officials today, the Department of Justice is arguing one thing. They know that everybody's coming down on Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And what they're saying is, look, let Michael Horowitz do his job. This is his purview. This is his mandate. His mandate is over the DOJ and over the FBI. And his investigators can continue this investigation. They argue that if they bring in a special counsel, a special prosecutor, they would have to take more than likely FBI agents to be investigators, and they may not be able to do that because they may just be put out. They may have to reach out to the Postmaster General to get investigators from there who aren't up to speed on this investigation.
So the argument is we got to have the Inspector General continue on this issue when the Inspector General has no grand jury, no ability to prosecute. We know that the Inspector General has taken forever on what he's doing right now. We're still waiting. We can wait till the cows come home. But even more than that, I mean, you know, they don't have sufficient FBI agents to investigate. That's hogwash.
I think that they would be compromised out. That's what they're saying, that the agency, the Bureau itself.
Get new guys.
Exactly. You bring in a second special counsel who has subpoena power, who can compel people to testify and obtain documents from them with a grand jury. And you can do it very efficiently. You hire your own team of people. I know several former FBI agents who would be more than happy to return to the job to work for a new second special counsel and get somebody in there like a Joe DeGeneva who's actually smart and competent and experienced, and he would do it efficiently.
Well, and you know what's amazing is the idea that you know, all of these FBI agents would be compromised or conflicted, and there are no other guys to do or women to do the job. Sarah, last word.
Well, and I agree with you there, Judge. I mean, there are people within the Bureau that are outstanding, that are not compromised, that would be willing to do this. And I think there's a lot more coming out in Michael Horowitz's IG report beyond what we're seeing on McCabe. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes wide open once that report comes out, and I think it'll be very soon.
I hope so. Anyway, thanks so much. Coming up, Gina Loudon and Charlie Kirk weigh in on the media's pathetic attempt to divert attention away from all these Democrat scandals. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. The Democrats are embroiled in several major scandals, but if you watch the mainstream media, you wouldn't know it. Instead, the overwhelming focus of nearly every story from the Destroy Trump press is something negative about this administration. For example, take a look at some of the coverage over just the past 2 days.
We hear reports that he's angry and he's bouncing around the White House and he's raging about chaos. Things are about to get pretty ugly inside the White House. And the question is, for somebody like Hope Hicks, why did you stay that long? She's got to get ready for Mueller. She's got to get ready for a trial.
And what we're talking about here is a conspiracy to unlawfully influence this election, you know, a quid pro quo between the Russians on the one side and the Trump campaign on the other.
Any meeting that occurs in the White House that Jared Kushner attends with anyone who has financial connections, is there a quid pro quo?
Right. Is there a quid pro quo, and does that affect the national security of the United States?
This is another sign of a White House that is just in this constant state of turmoil.
Do you think Trump's loyalty, which seems only to extend to his family, do you think that's going to hurt him?
Yeah, I think it already has.
Just to recap, talking about the chaos, Chief Economic Advisor Gary Cohn has threatened to resign over the tariff decision. Chief of Staff John Kelly joked that God was punishing him by making him work at the White House. Jared Kushner no longer has access to top secret information. The president may be trying to push him and his wife, who happens to be the president's daughter, out of the White House. His closest confidant, perhaps, Hope Hicks, is leaving. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster may also be on the way out the door.
Joining us now from Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and radio talk show host Gina Loudon. All right, you know what I find interesting, Charlie, is the fact that on the one hand, I think it's Joe Scarborough, I think it was Scarborough, he says Trump's loyalty extends only to his family. And then Jake Tapper says that Trump is just about ready to push out his son-in-law, who happens to be the husband of his daughter. I mean, they can't even keep their story straight as to what's going on with the president.
Well, it's funny. There's an old expression, tell the truth, it's easier to remember. What's going on here is the media is almost cheering for this president to fail. And look, it just makes me so angry because what this president is accomplishing over the last year is truly historic. I mean, imagine if a Democrat president had black unemployment at record low levels, black home ownership at the highest ever level, Latino unemployment at the lowest ever level, median incomes going up, the Dow hitting records every other week, the economy roaring, trillions of dollars coming back to the country. The media would be fawning over this Democrat president as the most accomplished, most stable, a wonderful president we ever had. Instead, we're worrying about all this palace intrigue that the American people don't care about. It's because the media wants him to fail. They would rather see America fail while Trump is in office than succeed, and that is sick and it is wrong, and you see this nonsense happening with the media elites.
You know, Gina, the truth is that, you know, here we have a president who is accomplishing so much, and just what Charlie said is just a bit of it. To me, one of the biggest things is tax reform, which is tax cuts, which are reflected in people's paychecks. I mean, people can actually see this stuff, and yet they are so convinced that this man is the epitome of evil. Where does this come from? I mean, it's the same question we all ask over and over again. I can't comprehend it.
You know, that's a great point, Judge. It does seem like utter insanity. And every time they do this again, I think, you know what, I just want to tell them to keep it coming. Because whether or not they believe it, they're the real colluders with the Trump campaign. Because every time the media goes after him again, the American public knows the more apoplectic the media, the more you know Trump is on the right path and doing great things to make America great again. And Charlie mentioned many of them, but the strides he's made for women, the Supreme Court. There are so many things that are speaking and even moving, I believe, voting blocks that have been traditionally Democrat. I think we're going to see some massive shifts there, you know, from the Rust Belt to the Blue Wall. You know, I think some union people are going to be, and obviously multiple ethnicities are going to be taking a look at how this president has really changed their lives. And they may be reconsidering what the media is telling them.
All right, Charlie, this conspiracy to influence the election. Nothing has come up in the last 18 months. You know, all we hear is that Donald Jr. had a meeting based on a friend's asking him to meet with someone. And, you know, it lasted 20 minutes. And then Donald Trump Jr. just, you know, said, thanks so much, goodbye. And now it's like a federal offense. It is absurd. And I think the American people see this for what it is. And the American people are going to react. It's almost as though New York and California are the parentheses around middle America, and they're like, they're nuts.
That's right. I call it destination journalism. It's as if the media is trying to create a story that is not there. They're trying to write the story backwards with the headline on top, then they'll fill in the words and they'll just make up the facts. And when you're talking about what happened with Don Jr., he took a single meeting with zero follow-up that has triggered an absolute catastrophe of legal fees and hearings and a totally unnecessary behavior from Congress. I don't understand why the House Republicans are continuing with this. It doesn't make any sense. It's not constructive for the country. And the final thing is this. You're right. The American people are sick of this. They want results. They want tax cuts. They want things to keep moving forward. They want an infrastructure bill. They don't want the continuation of this political witch hunt. And look, if anyone colluded with Russia, it was Hillary Clinton that sold our uranium to the Russians. That was the collusion, nothing with the Trump campaign.
Gina, last 15 seconds, she was the one taking all the cash, she and Bill, and they're telling me I don't have enough time. But thanks for being with us tonight, Charlie and Gina. And coming up, more Hannity right after the break. Stay with us.
Yeah, you can get a mortgage that avoids PMI, but there's no way to avoid